This is the beginning of the podcast series, and we are in Passyunk Avenue, a pub just in Fitzrovia in London. And I've got to say, we're a better place to have a podcast.
I completely agree. So you're probably wondering who we are. Well, I'm Alec. No, I'm not. He's Alec.
Oh, we're keeping that.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely keep that one. And,
We'll try this again. You can see how professional this podcast is going to be.
You're the only person who hasn't had a beer.
I know. I'm Lee.
I'm Alec.
I'm Brendan.
You're listening to The Creative Bridge.
So this is our studio, but it is not a studio. Upstairs, the pub is. This is lunchtime, and the pub is really, well, it's heaving, isn't it? So
Very busy.
yeah, a big thank you to the guys and girls at Passyunk Avenue, because they've offered to host us for this podcast series, which is absolutely fantastic. So this is where we're going to be for each of the upcoming episodes, which is great. Lee, Creative Bridge. What's in the name?
Basically, it came out of us doing a course, a creative media course with British Forces Broadcasting Academy. It's the bridge between your career that you're doing and the one that you want to do. So if you're in the military, you're going to be a veteran soon. It's a creative bridge. It's a way of finding something else that you can do.
We're all veterans. We've all transitioned out of the military, and we're at various stages. So Lee left in 1979.
That's correct.
I left in 2016. Brendan, when did you leave?
2020.
2020. So we're all on this journey just the same as everybody else, but we wanted to share it. So we were really lucky. All three of us managed to get on the very last of the year-long full-time courses at the BFBS Academy. Hugely fortunate for us, but it felt like we'd had this opportunity. We wanted to share it with you, because whilst it has been our route into creative media, into the creative world, it is not the route. And this next 6 episodes is going to be an exploration of all the different paths that people have taken. And we're talking about 6 routes. There are probably 6 million possible avenues. So we're only going to scratch the surface. So I'm just going to explain just one thing, because I'm aware that as I'm listening to the sound here, Lee and I sound different to the way you sound, Brendan. And for anybody who's listening, Lee and I are going to host this podcast, The Creative Bridge. We're going to host the 6 episodes going forward. And Brendan is going to be the camera person and the support crew. He's the whole support crew. It's just Brendan.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Who is currently sat at the bar filming, which I think is his favourite location to be.
Like I said, oh, God.
Yeah. So he's on a wireless mic, which is why he sounds a little bit different. Who is this for then?
This is basically for people who are transitioning out of a militarized style operation disciplines. Yeah, and the reason we say that is, of course, we're veterans, and it is for veterans, and our heart lies with the veteran community. But Alec, as you pointed out in one of our conversations, it could be you might have been in the police force, the fire department, any of those careers where you're quite formatted in what you do. Yeah, and it's difficult to break away from that. So this is an opportunity that we're going to explore for the use of transferable skills as well, and there are many in this industry.
Obviously, if you're just about getting ready to leave the military, if you're about to do your transition, the transitions service that's provided is fantastic. It's a great opportunity. It gets lots of bums on seats for their first job after being in the military. It's pretty unlikely that you're going to be pointed in the direction of the creative industry, which is a real shame, because creative industry is huge, isn't it, Lee?
It's the number one industry in the country at the moment. Yeah. And by that I mean everything from film sets, theatre, video games, I mean, you name it, radio, it just goes on and on. Podcasting is huge, which is obviously why we're doing one.
Yeah.
It is the fastest growing, and it's the largest economy in Great Britain.
Yeah.
And as Michael Caine would have said, not many people know that. Imagine a military operation, a military exercise, right? It isn't just about the guys on the ground or the people flying the planes or the guys in the tanks. Logistically, to get them where they're at, you have a whole series of events that need to take place. Well, all of those same events, just a different discipline, all exist within, say, the film industry. Yeah. In order for Tom Cruise to step in front of a camera, it took, literally in the case, thousands of people to create the environment that he's going to shoot his next film in. It wasn't 3 people.
Okay, so what can you expect going forward? We've got 6 guests coming up over the next 6 episodes. Without giving too much away, Lee, what sort of things are we going to cover?
We're hoping to cover the use of a couple of organizations that will support you, but also individuals who are actually, making their life and their way through the creative arts.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, we're not talking about going away and volunteering and being in necessarily. I mean, that is an avenue open to people, but we're talking about people going out and actually making a living. This is their career. This is how they pay their mortgage. Yeah,
you can start, if you're interested, you can start literally by volunteering. I volunteered on a community radio station a couple of years ago. One of the best things I've ever done. Huge amount of fun, and it gave me a ton of experience. But I've also been paid to do this since 1994, which is also, amazing, using some of those transferable skills. And so, yes, it's all of that. But the goal of this is for those of you who are interested to show you some avenues of how you can enter this profession and actually make it a payable career for the rest of your life if you want it.
We've talked about those sort of soft skills, the things that are directly transferable. You only have to look at people like, who was the guy who just won the award, 45? Emil
Grissom.
Yeah. So ex-Royal Marine, now documentary filmmaker. Mal Gree, he's a documentary filmmaker. And they, certainly Mal Gree came from a combat camera team background. Rather unusual, a soft step for him. He'd had that experience going out, running film crews and everything else, and now he's doing that. But there are avenues for other people to follow that. So it's open there. There's opportunities. And I want to give just a final bit of context here, because I think it's important. Because Brendan and I are youths at just around about the 40 years mark. This is the key point. If you are now leaving the military, it's a really good opportunity to make a change, and you've got a great opportunity to make quite a bold change. But transitioning doesn't happen just once. You're going to transition 2 or 3 times, probably before you find the thing that that either you enjoy or you can tolerate doing. And my point here is, you don't have to just tolerate your job. There's an opportunity. Lee, how old are you?
Well, let's put it this way. I was going to do a podcast when I was in the Army, but you just couldn't hear the semaphore flags over the radio. No, I'm 66. I have no problem with that. So when I got out of the Army, I basically worked in a steel mill. That was the first thing.
Yep.
And hated that. So then I became a nursing assistant. Like that, but what I looked for were organizations that worked in the same way as the military. And even though I enjoyed, eventually my main career for a while, for about 10 years, was restaurant manager. Absolutely loved it. And the only reason I picked it in the end was because I could see a hierarchy within that, because I worked for a chain. And I could see the same system, as you were saying, Brendan, that existed in the military. And it was only in 1994 when I picked something not for that reason, which was basically to be in a play, auditioned for the play and got cast in the play. And then I said, this is what I want to do. And I actually went and auditioned for an acting school and became trained as an actor and went that route. But that was the first time that I had thought about doing something that didn't have that hierarchical pyramid where I could plug into it for safety.
Yeah. You've done a number of transitions. And at 65, you've done another transition. You came on the course at BFBS with the rest of us. You did another career transition at 65. So the key point here is it doesn't matter where you are today.
Yes.
This creative industry is not closed to you. And that's really important, because I didn't even know that it was open to me. Not the fact that it could be closed. I didn't even know it could be open to me. I had never thought of myself as a creative person. And now I look back on it, I think it was there all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 100%. But that's what I'm saying. If you don't feel, if you want to soft step into somewhere, you're still within that industry. There's still, there's so many areas that will support you and you can get into. And, with the people surrounding you, they're passionate about what they're doing. They're organised, and it's just nice to see that. You're always working in teams, whether really small or really big, which we're all used to. And everyone's got one goal, is to, that end product that they're going to push out the door.
Well, you have a really interesting story that you can tell in about 30 seconds or less, how you got into it.
Yeah, so I left in 2016. I went off and I took what I thought was a pretty safe route. I did a master's that would help me transition my military skills. I did a master's in disaster risk and resilience, and I thought I'd go and work for, international NGOs doing disaster work, really re-rolling my military skills quite directly. And I'm not saying that was a bad decision. It just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. And I worked for an NGO, and then I started looking for another role. So I'd already done 2 transitions by this time. I'd left the military, gone into academia, which was a bit of a shock to the system, and then started working in an NGO, which was another different experience. And then I started looking for another job, and it just got to a point where I thought, I'm going to have to do those. So I was going to the Officers Association, all that sort of thing. And great support. It's not a criticism, but it was going BT Tower, actually, just around the corner. You can see BT Tower. If we walked past it on the way here. It was at the bottom of BT Tower, and it was all about investment banking companies, and the consultancy firms were coming in, and there were people who were standing up saying, I work for a consultant, and this is why I get up in the morning. And I thought, you know what, A, you're not selling it to me, but B, I just don't believe you. I don't believe that you can go from being an officer in the Royal Marines to being a consultant for one of the big consultancy firms, and that's what motivates you. I mean, you must have gone through some pretty significant change since you've left.
Mind realignment.
Yeah. My goodness, I can't imagine a bigger change. But there we go. And I was sat there thinking, I'm in the wrong place, because this is not motivating me. And then Adam stood up from BFBS Academy, and he said, there is an opportunity out there for you in the creative industry. We are looking for people like you. And I'm not joking. I sat in that conference room, and it was all the lights were dim. Adam was up on stage. Adam Waters was up on stage, and it was like he was talking to just me. I don't think anybody. I don't know how many other people in the room were maybe having that moment I was having when the investment bankers were standing there. But for me, I was like, I need to get to the stage before anybody else does, and make sure that I say, how do I get on this course?
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, somebody had shown me that sort of, I'd really like to have a go at that, but there's no avenue for me. I'm too old. It's too late. I don't have the background. There are young kids who are coming up who've got 20 years. 20 years more experience than me, and I wouldn't even know where to start. And suddenly this opportunity came up, and here was somebody saying to me, not only is there an opportunity for you, but there are other people who've taken a route before, and that BFBS Academy may not be running a year-long course. This podcast could show those routes to other people in the same way that Adam showed it to me.
And that's exactly why I asked you to tell that story, because I feel like that we could be, part of that little light that shines and opens it up for someone else. And I think we all agree that we'd like to share. So we don't want to be the group of people that pull the ladder up behind us.
I bet though, if you sat down and you look back and you thought, right, what was my last full-time job in the military? And I go and sit down with all my peers, and they say to me, what are you going to do when you leave the military? And if I stood there and said, I'm going to go work in investment banking, everybody would nod their head and go, yeah, very good decision. If I'm going to be a consultant, yeah, very good decision.
Yeah, I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. Yeah. Exactly that. I know. Let me put you in touch with a mate of mine who left 5 years ago, and he'll get you an interview.
That's what you get.
That path is there. And if you were a lorry driver, you sat down amongst your peers, and as you said, I drive HGVs in the army, they'll say, my mate, his dad owns a business, lorry driving. They're looking for new people in where you want to live. I'll put you in touch. And so, but if you went in and said, I want to be an actor, I've sat there when people have come in, and I remember a pilot came in to see me once. Helicopter pilot came in, and he'd done 22 years. He'd been a Lynx pilot, done his 22, and I said to him, "What are you going to do next?" He said, "I'm going to be a train driver." You could have dropped. Honestly, you could have dropped a pin in the room, a pin, and heard it, because everybody just went quiet and then laughed at him, because that's not the sort of thing he would have done. I can only imagine if he'd gone in and said, "I'm going to be an actor."
Yeah, the same response.
It would have been even worse.
We're quick to jump on things in the military, and like because you don't feel it's the norm.
It's not how we've been.
We're collective.
It's not how we've been encouraged to think of ourselves. But and if I may, the final thing that I would say that I want this podcast to be able to do is I want people out there who are already in the creative industry, who maybe have never worked with a veteran, knowingly, to be able to see that there is a different side of us to that idea of we stomp around, we shout at each other, and we just follow orders, and that is it. That is not the military. That's certainly not the military I've ever experienced. I've seen bags of creativity from, two of the ship's company setting up a radio show once a week while we were on deployment. Fantastic. Sod's Opera, big tradition. Fancy dress. One of the girls on I think it was Albion, made a ball dress out of gaffer tape. I mean, she used the entire ship's supply of gaffer tape up, making this ball dress. But she made this incredible full-length ball dress with all corset and everything, purely from gaffer tape. That's creativity.
Yeah,
bags of
it.
Yeah. And that, I mean, you could take her from the ship's company and just put her on a pantomime, and she on stage on a pantomime, she would have been well away. Do you know what I mean? It's that. So there's creativity there, but it's not how we're taught to think about ourselves, and I think it's not how society sees us either. And so I think this is an opportunity to change that.
From outside looking in, I think people don't understand what we can bring to the party. But there's definite change. I mean, when I was, my tail end as a sort of senior into a warrant officer, even like working closely with the infantry and all the other sort of cat badges, there's a change. I know it's in there. And that's what people think we haven't got, is that voice to speak up or that voice to like be creative or do things, and I think we have got it. In the Victorian times, probably not.
Yeah.
Now I think
when Lee joined.
Yeah.
Why would you listen to this podcast? Okay, there's going to be some soft skills, some soft steps that are going to be easy for you to make if that's what you want to do, and there's going to be some pretty radical, bold guests who've done some stuff that's, I think it's fair to say, is going to blow your mind.
Yep.
We'll probably introduce those a little bit later on. I think it might be a bit much to launch straight into that. But listen to this if you are thinking about leaving, or you have already left, and you may have already be in your second or third job. If that is not lighting your fire, if it isn't, motivating you, and if you think you could be finding more fulfillment elsewhere, have a listen to this podcast. Follow us over the next six episodes, and we're going to be at Pussyunk Avenue, really, as long as they'll have us. Thank you very much to the team here for hosting us.
And I've been Lee.
I've been Alec.
And Brendan, sat in the corner.
And you've been listening to The Creative Bridge. I hope you stick with us.
Lee was even Alec for a while at the beginning.
Yeah, crazy times that was.